Hello. This time we're going to create a JSON service using the PlayFramework. As with previous examples, it is required that you have Java and SBT already installed on your computer. So we're going to type our SBT new command using PlayFramework /play-scala-c.g8, which is going to create a new application for us. And this time we are going to name it JSON Service. And we have to type our organization here. And there it is. So this command has created the JSON Service directory for us. And I'm going to go ahead and remove all the Gradle files and directories because I just don't use it. It's built Gradle. And this gives us a cleaner directory to work with. So after that, I'm going to just run my application the way we always do it. Let's give it a minute. And we are going to wait for the confirmation. The first time it usually takes a little longer, but here it is. Here's our confirmation, right? The server has started and is listening on port 9000. So the next step is I'm going to open the project using my regular Sublime text editor. And there it is. So for this project, we are going to create 3 paths that respond to our JSON requests. We are going to let our users ask for a list of users, ask for a specific user, and then post a new user. So in other words, let me just go here to conf and then to the routes file. What we are going to do here is, well, first of all, we need a path to get a list of users, right? And I'm actually going to rename this function from index to users. Then I'm going to need another path that is able to read a user ID from the path. And then I'm going to redirect this to a specific function called user, which is going to receive a user ID parameter, which is going to be a string. And finally, we're going to have a post function listening on the user's path, which is going to call the add function. As you can see, we are following the REST standard here. You can tell it by the paths we are using. So with this in mind, let's begin our work. So I have just saved the roots file, and I'm going to go to the app directory, and specifically inside the home controllers file. So open that one. And here we were talking about having 3 different functions, right? One of them is users, because we call it like this on the roots file. And then we are going to have a user function, which is going to read a user ID, which is a string, right? And then finally an add function, okay, which are these 2 functions, the ones that we have just added here. So what we are going to do now is, whenever we receive a request to our users, we have to return a list of users, right? So, but there's something here. We haven't defined what a user looks like. So we are going to do that. And in the app directory, I'm going to create a new folder, which we are going to call models. And inside this directory, I'm going to create a new file called user. So since our user lives inside the models directory, I have to specify a package right there. Let's create a case class for this user and add some properties like an ID, a name, and maybe age. And for these properties, we are going to assign default values just to make our lives easier. So let's call you 001, and then let's give you a name, something like Kirby, and assign you some age, like 35, whatever. Now let's save this file as user.scala, and we can now go back to our home controller. Well, first of all, import our new class, which comes from the users package, and it's called user, right? And now going back to the users function, we were saying that we need to retrieve a list of users. So from here, we can just create an instance of a user, right, like this, which is the default instance, and this is going to use all the default properties, right? And after that, what we have to do is, instead of returning this view, this HTML view, we want to convert the contents of this variable into JSON. For this, I'm going to use the JSON library provided by the PlayFramework, which goes like this. We are asking it to convert to JSON this value, okay? And then finally, we have to specify that the return content type of this function is going to be of application JSON. Something else, we have to make sure to import this library. So I'm going to do a play.api.libs.json._. It seems like we already have everything in place. So let's make a first test, because we may be missing something. In order to test this application, I'm going to use Postman. So the first step, I'm going to create a new collection called Json Service, the same way that my application is called. And then inside it, I'm going to create a request, which I'm going to name get users. This is a get request, that is correct. It's listening on HTTP localhost /9000/users. This URL and this path match the one that we specified in the routes directory. So let's try it. Doing a synth, I can see in the background that my service is doing something and a big list of errors, which is expected. And then over here, I'm going to click on preview. And then it says that this library doesn't exist. So let me just quickly go back here, fix this because it's actually called libs, and then try this again. Okay, here it is. This is what I wanted to show you. The error that we are getting here says no JSON serializer found for list model user, right? So what this is telling us is that Scala doesn't know how to convert a user to JSON. We have to add a companion object to this case class, which, as you know, has to be called the same way as a case class. And then I'm going to write an implicit value called user implicit reads, which is going to be equals to read to JSON.reads user. We now need to create another converter, but this time to go from JSON to a user instance. It's very similar to this one, but instead of going the read way, we have to go the right way. So it goes like this: JSON reads, JSON writes. Finally, what we are going to do is import the JSON library to this file, which goes play api.libs.json.json. All right. So before moving forward, let's with testing this application, let's keep working on this class, okay? So our next function is user, which this one is going to return a specific user instance, right? So this one goes very similar to the previous one, so I'm just going to copy it over here. But instead of returning a list, we're just going to create a single instance, like this. And let's give it a twist. This time, since we are reading a user ID, I'm going to simulate that we are reading a real user just by overriding the default ID on this class, and I do it just like this. So this user ID variable is going to just to come over here to this class, and it's going to get assigned to the ID property. Okay. And then finally, the add function. This one is a little bit different because it needs an action, but this time we need to parse JSON from the request. So we are going to add that function over here, and then we have to create as well our implicit request. And in this occasion, instead of reading any content, we are going to read JS value. Okay? It is important to do it. If we don't do it, this is not going to work. So the first step in this function is to read the actual JSON value. So I'm going to create a user result value, which is going to read from request body, and we are going to call this special function called validate, which is going to try to match whatever comes in the body into and put it into a user. So if things go wrong, we are going to get an errors value over here from where we can do a vad request response. And otherwise, if things go fine, we are going to return the same instance of the user that was posted. So this one goes like this: JSON to JSON, the same user that we are reading, which is this instance, right? And then same thing as content type application JSON. Something else, we can do something better than just returning a bad request here. We can actually use that same JSON instance to create a richer error message. So what I'm going to do here is ask it to return an object, a JSON object with a couple properties. One of them is called status. The other one is called message. And I'm going to assign the value that we are getting on the errors function, on the errors value, this one. Okay. So far things are looking good. So let's give it a try. So let's go back to this first function, which is our first get users function. So let's try it. We can see on the back that Scala is compiling, and then if we click here on raw, we can get the response. We are getting actually a list, because we can see the brackets over here, a list of values. Okay, we could actually change it, maybe it's like this, list user, and then assign a new value here to the ID, just to make it more obvious. So let's try it again. And then, yeah, we can see it here. We have a user ID 1230001, sorry, and then a user ID 123 over here. So that is our list of results. So let's give it a try to our second function, which is user. For user, we have to specify a user at the end, right? Like ABC123 again. And let's try it just by sending it, and here it is. You see that this ID matches this ID, right? Even if I go like 1234, it's gonna go 1234. Why? Because we are saying here that we want this user ID to become the ID on the user instance we are creating. And then let's do one more request over here. Let's add a post request, which we are going to call add user. And then for this add user, which we are going to call by using the post verb to the same URL, localhost 9000 users. This time we're going to add some body, and we have to type something here. We have to type the same properties because we are expecting to read a user, so we need an ID, which we are going to call it posted 001, and then we have to assign a name to it. This time we're going to call it Mario, and then finally some age. So we are going to use, I don't know, 30. And something else, headers must specify that this is a application JSON request. Application JSON request. So there we are. We have our headers here, our body here. Let's try it. Send. Let's take a look at our response. And there it is. We are just returning the same value, the same user that we are posting, right? Which is correct. That's what we are doing here. If we have a real user, we are just going to return that. And if we have a request that doesn't match our user, like I'm going to add quotes here, so it's not an integer, but a string, then we are going to get the status, the error message that we set on this line, right? And since this is a bad request, then we are getting a 400 error over here. Okay, that's it for this example. I hope you find it useful, and well, have a great day and happy coding. See you next time.